Hi there, Steve Kaufmann here. Going to talk today about proficiency in foreign languages, levels of proficiency or levels of fluency. And I'm doing this in response to a video that I just watched, which features Luca, who in my mind is an absolutely outstanding polyglot, and Anthony Lauder from Prague. By the way, if you enjoy these videos where I talk about language learning, please subscribe to my channel. The video, and I'll post a link to it in the description box, is a discussion between, as I say, Luca and Anthony, where they sort of make the point that you don't need to have a large vocabulary in order to be fluent. And Anthony has in the past sort of said that even with a few hundred words you can be fluent, or you can be fluent at a relatively low level of proficiency in a language. I don't agree at all. First of all, let's look at this word fluency. Fluency is a bit like the word good or well. You can say if you say I'm fluent in a language, that actually means that you are very fluent. If you say I speak a language well, it means that you speak it well. If you say I speak the language quite well, or I'm quite fluent, that suggests actually something less than fluency. And so if you are able to say a few things in the language, you might even suggest that I'm sort of fairly fluent in the language, but that's, to my mind, less than fluent. So in the video, they both talk about how Anthony can go around town in Prague and doesn't need many words to exchange pleasantries with shopkeepers or whatever. But is this really fluency? I don't think so. There are different ways of measuring levels of proficiency in a language. There's the European common framework of reference, which divides proficiency into six levels from A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. In my view, B2 is where you are fluent. So that's actually fairly far along. And in order to be fluent, you have to be able to do certain things. I think you have to be able to read a newspaper. Now, in Chinese, that might cause some difficulty because the writing system isn't phonetic. So conceivably, you could be fluent and not be able to read the newspaper. But in most situations, someone who is fluent in a language should be able to read the newspaper. The newspaper, typically, I know in English, the sort of difficulty level is roughly grade 7, grade 8. And the biggest factor in the difficulty level of any content is the vocabulary level. And now, granted, you could have complex sentences and complex structures, but I think the main difference, particularly if we're talking about levels of fluency, is how complex or how, sort of how many relatively less frequent words are used. I think in order to be able to call oneself fluent, one needn't be able to read, esoteric literature or scientific papers, but one should be able to read the newspaper. And to read the newspaper, you do need at least the vocabulary of someone in grade 7. And that's a fair number of words. I think they talk about, I don't know, it's got to be 7 or 8, 9, 10,000 words in English. And of course, the other thing is, if we're talking about levels of proficiency or levels of fluency in a language, so then I also think that the biggest indicator is the number of words you know. So if you are very fluent, if you are at a university level, you are going to know a lot more words than someone who can only read at a grade 3 level. Now, you could argue that someone could be fluent with a limited vocabulary, and it's possible that one could be fluent with a grade 3 level of vocabulary. But if you are an adult and you can only communicate with children, then to my mind you're less than fluent. If you can only talk about the weather and talk about very basic things, even if you do so fluently, to my mind, you're not fluent. The native speaker, most adult native speakers have a large vocabulary, a large active vocabulary. Perhaps certainly the people that I would like to communicate with have large active vocabularies. Therefore, I have to have a fairly large passive vocabulary in order to understand what they're saying. And I think that fluency implies two-way communication. You can learn a bunch of sentences. You can use Anki or whatever to express yourself fairly quickly. But the trick is to understand what other people are saying. And that is why I put so much emphasis on listening and reading. And you can see in the background here just some of the language CDs that I own, and I have books, and I find daily I download content from the internet and I listen. Now, much of this issue of fluency, it also depends on what your needs are. And so if you have a need to communicate right away now because you're in the country and you're going to the stores and the shops, there's going to be more pressure on you to speak. In my case, as I call it, dilettante language learner, I'm quite content to let my vocabulary accumulate and my ability to understand develop until such a time as I have a need or an opportunity to speak a lot. And then my speaking develops quite quickly. Now, there are people who understand well and who are too shy or inhibited to speak. I think those people are the minority. I think once people have acquired a good understanding of the language, they generally have the vocabulary and therefore the confidence that they can start to develop the ability to speak. So that's my view on Luca and Anthony's video. I don't agree with them. I think fluency, if we're talking about not quite or somewhat fluent, if we're talking about really fluent, then that requires a large vocabulary. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. Oh, and an afterthought. Until you are fluent in the language, you should probably read whatever you listen to and listen to what you read. I mean, foreign language CDs you see in the background, as much as possible I try to find the text so that I can learn the words. So with that in mind, you'll be able to, if you're a student of English, you'll be able to find this video with a transcript as a lesson at link, and we will put up a link in the description box. I just wanted to add that. Thank you. Bye.